You've seen the Hollywood version of war. Now, see the stories Hollywood forgot. Survivors, ghosts, broken men, the real cost of conflict. Here are 11 incredible war films you've probably never seen. In most war movies, the goal is to survive. In this one, survival is a punishment. You're dropped into World War II's Hurtgen Forest, a forgotten, muddy meat grinder of a battle. You're following a private who is good at only one thing, not dying. And for this, the army promotes him, again and again. Every time he makes it back, they give him a new stripe and a new squad of green replacements to lead back into hell. He doesn't want to be a hero, he wants out. But in this war, survival isn't a reward, it's a life sentence. Director John Irvin said the battle was a stupid, terrible waste of life. And there's a great drama in that. And here's the thing. It had the worst possible luck. It was released in 1998, the same monster year that gave us both Saving Private Ryan and The Thin Red Line. Between the blockbuster and the art film, this gritty HBO movie never stood a chance of getting the attention it deserved. A gut-wrenching descent into the mud. The Anti-Band of Brothers. 1964. Before the draft, before the protests, before America even admitted it was in a war, this movie already knew the final score. You're dropped into the very beginning, the advisor phase, with a 50-year-old Burt Lancaster. And you can see it in his eyes. He's not playing a soldier. He's playing a man who has read the last page of a book that everyone else is just starting. His mission isn't to win. It's to manage a disaster, in slow motion. He sends his men to occupy a cemetery, a patch of worthless ground the French already died for, and he's supposed to call it progress. The whole film is a quiet, grinding truth that the game was rigged from the start. So when this brutally honest film hit theaters in '78, what do you think happened? Director Ted Post said it best himself. The picture did not do well at all. It was a truth that nobody was ready to accept. He was right. America wasn't ready for a diagnosis. They wanted a myth. So this film vanished, becoming a Hollywood ghost. A prophetic masterpiece that revealed the entire tragedy of Vietnam before the main act had even started. The most intelligent, clear-eyed Vietnam movie you've never heard of. A lost classic. In 1983, a director put two of the biggest rock stars on the planet, David Bowie and Ryuichi Sakamoto, in a Japanese POW camp. But the war he was filming wasn't the one with guns. You think you're watching World War II, but you're not. You're watching a strange, beautiful, and deeply unsettling obsession unfold. Sakamoto plays the camp commandant, a man of rigid honor who becomes completely transfixed by Bowie's captured soldier, this defiant, androgynous, almost alien being. The entire film just hums with this unspoken tension, this forbidden desire. On the surface, sure, it's a culture clash. David Bowie even said the director wanted to show the awful tension between the two cultures, and this inability to understand each other. But what he really shows is a tension far more personal. A war fought entirely within the commandant's mind. It's not about escaping the camp, it's about whether he will surrender to his own fascination. The casting was everything. These weren't actors, they were icons, and they brought all that dangerous magnetic energy with them. Haunting, hypnotic, sublimely strange, it gets under your skin and stays there. Imagine you're Sean Connery. It's 1965. You are James Bond, the biggest, coolest star on the planet, and you are desperate to escape. So what do? You fly to a North African desert, shave your head, and sign up for a film where your main enemy is a pile of sand. This is the hill, and there are no martinis here, no gadgets, just sun, sweat, and psychological torture in a British military prison. You've got a young, hungry Sidney Lumet behind the camera. Directing a cast he said was full of talent and ready for a fight. His words, "We were all full of piss and vinegar. We were going to show the world what we could do. And we went out into the desert and let it rip." And they did. Lumet uses the blistering heat and claustrophobic shots to make you feel the prison walls closing in. The real star, though, is that hill, a man-made mountain of dirt, a weapon designed to break men body and soul. You watch Connery, stripped of all his charm, weaponizing nothing but pure, stubborn defiance against a system that demands he crawl. He isn't saving the world here. He's just trying to save himself. A sweaty, claustrophobic masterpiece of pure defiance. Connery was never better. Here at Vintage Verse, we dig up the films Hollywood buried. Subscribe now, and and never miss a lost masterpiece. In 1988, Hollywood sold you the myth of the war in Afghanistan, Rambo 3, where one American hero destroys an evil empire. But another American film, released the same year, dared to tell the truth. It put you inside a Soviet T-62 tank and asked you to feel for the guys Rambo was supposed to be killing. You're not with the heroes. You're with the invaders. Lost, hunted by Mujahideen fighters, and trapped in a rolling iron coffin. That tank is the real star. It's a little piece of the Soviet Union, slowly eating itself alive from the inside out. A tyrannical commander, a disillusioned driver. The crew starts to fracture. And suddenly the war outside is nothing compared to the war inside. The screenwriter said it best. It's about the machine against the human soul. You're watching this high-tech beast get swallowed whole by an ancient landscape and the people who know it. And that is precisely why it got buried. The film is just raw. It refuses to give you a hero. No flag-waving, no cathartic victory at the end. It just shows you that war is a filthy, morally bankrupt business that corrupts everyone it touches. Audiences in '88, high on the Rambo myth, didn't want a dose of reality. They wanted the fantasy, and this movie refused to give them one. A raw, daring political statement disguised as a chase movie. They'd never make it today. The pitch is simple. Two men on a deserted island in World War II. One American soldier, one Japanese officer, and absolutely no dialogue. But what if I told you that for the American actor, this wasn't entirely an act? You're watching Lee Marvin, maybe the toughest man in Hollywood, facing off against the legendary Toshiro Mifune. And for an hour and a half, they tell the entire story of war without a single word. The suspicion, the blind hatred, the reluctant truce just to survive. But there's something else going on with Marvin. His performance is haunted, edged with a violence that feels way too real. And there's a reason for that. Director John Borman later revealed the secret. He said, "Lee told me that when he was a Marine in the Pacific, he was the sole survivor of his platoon. The film was my way of forcing him to confront that." So you're not just watching a movie. You're watching a man battling his own ghosts on celluloid. The whole film becomes a raw, primal allegory for the absurdity of war, made terrifyingly real by a man who had lived through it. Two titans, one island, zero dialogue. A brutal, brilliant cinematic experiment. You've seen the beach landings. You've seen the jungle patrols. But you've probably never seen a war fought at 40 below zero, by farmers given 80-year-old rifles and told to hold back a superpower. This is the Winter War of 1939. You're dropped into a frozen trench with a handful of Finnish reservists as the entire Soviet war machine crashes down on their tiny country, and there is nothing glorious about it. This might be the most authentic combat film ever made. No stirring speeches, no clean deaths, just the miserable, grinding reality of trying not to freeze. Director Pekka Parikka said his only goal was to depict the war as the men on the front line experienced it, and he does. You're not watching a movie about grand strategy, you're watching a portrait of Sisu. It's that same word from the crazy gold miner versus Nazis movie from 2022. But this film shows you what that word really means. It's not about over-the-top action. It's the quiet refusal to break, even when you're outnumbered 100-1 and can no longer feel your own hands. It became Finland's most popular film, a national event that swept their awards. The Academy? They took one look at its brutal, unflinching honesty and passed, a forgotten masterpiece. It's Christmas Eve 1944 in the Ardennes forest. You're with a small American intelligence squad, the smart guys, sent to a remote chateau to listen for enemy movement. And then you find them. A German platoon just as young and scared as you are. And they want to surrender. But that's not the strange part. The strange part is, they want to have a snowball fight first. This isn't a combat movie. It's a ghost story where the rules of war are the thing that haunts the men. You watch these two groups of soldiers, who have every reason to kill each other, slowly realize they have more in common than not. They start to build a fragile, absurd little piece. It was a passion project. Actor Ethan Hawke called it one of the first times he felt part of an ensemble trying to do something that was artistic and not commercial. And you can feel that. The film is quiet, eerie, and full of dread, because you know this fragile truce is doomed. It's a tragedy about the failure of language in a world that only understands violence. It's a war movie where the real enemy isn't the Germans, it's hope. Absolutely heartbreaking. Most Vietnam movies are about the 10 minutes of absolute terror. This one is about the other 23 hours and 50 minutes of the day. You're dropped in with a squad of Australian Special Forces, and you quickly realize this isn't about a big dramatic mission. There is no big mission. This is a movie about waiting. Waiting for a patrol. Waiting for a letter from home. Waiting for the next can of beer to get cold. You watch these guys play cards, shoot at camp rats, and trade insults with a dry, cynical wit that is purely Australian. This is the definitive hangout war film. It's about the soul-crushing boredom of deployment and the gallows humor you need to survive it with your mates. The actor Brian Brown, who's in the film, put it perfectly. It was the first movie to show that Australian soldiers weren't gung-ho. We just wanted to do our job and not get killed. It had that sense of cynical humor that is very Australian. And that's the whole film. No big speeches, no slow-motion deaths, just a brutally honest and darkly hilarious look at the 99% of war that nobody ever bothers to show you. Vietnam without the speeches or the slow-mo, just booze, boredom, and bad jokes. What if I told you one of the greatest World War II films ever made was released in 1980, but nobody actually saw the real movie until 2004? This is the story of the Big Red One. Director Sam Fuller, a cigar-chomping ex-infantryman who actually fought in the 1st Infantry, poured his own blood, sweat, and memories into this film. It was his life's work, his first-hand account of the war, and the studio took it from him, chopped out over 40 minutes, and released a butchered, incoherent mess. For decades, Fuller's masterpiece was just a ghost, a Hollywood legend. Then, in 2004, it was resurrected, restored. The film you can see now is what he always intended, a sprawling, novel-like journey through the sheer absurdity of war. There's no real plot. You just follow Lee Marvin and his squad from one insane situation to the next, where the only mission is to not die. As Fuller himself put it, the real glory of war is surviving. You say, I made it, I'm a survivor. That's the glory. This isn't a Hollywood war movie. It's a man's memory rescued from a studio vault. The restored cut is a lost masterpiece, pure and simple. A first-hand report from hell. What's the longest walk you've ever taken? 10 miles? 20? Now imagine walking from the eastern edge of Siberia to the border of Iran, on foot after escaping a Soviet gulag. That is the entire movie. The war is over. For this German POW, Clemens Forel, the real battle has just begun. His enemy isn't an army with guns. It's 9,000 kilometers of frozen tundra, jagged mountains, and scorching desert. It's a 3-year war against frostbite, against starvation, against the wolves that track him and the KGB agents that hunt him. But more than anything, it's a war against the crushing, soul-destroying loneliness of the horizon. The film is almost silent for long stretches, because how do you even act that kind of solitude? Lead actor Bernhard Betterman struggled with that very question, saying, the most difficult thing was to portray the loneliness. How do you show that? It's not in the dialogue, it's in the eyes, in the way he moves. It had to feel relentless. And it does. You quickly forget his uniform. This isn't a story about a German. It's about a man, stripped of politics, of identity, of everything but the stubborn, desperate will to take one more step home. One of the most grueling, lonely, and incredible survival journeys ever put on film. Those are the films Hollywood buried. What other hidden masterpieces have slipped through the cracks? Drop your suggestions in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.